On leadership, the major story says fresh crisis in PDP as 5 NWC members return 151 million naira rent loot. You can see this story in details on page 4. Moving down there, the first bullet says they are being mischievous. Money duly approved for all NWC members for 2-year rent, says PDP acting chairman Damagun. The next bullet says it's no bribe, says spokesman. Next bullet says presidential candidates sign peace accord. Committee warns against vote buying, fake news, other infractions. That is all we have on the leadership this morning. Please do well to hop onto our website, www.leadership.nj, to find these stories and even much more. Over to the next paper for today. We have the Punch. And on the Punch this morning, the major story says APC presidential campaign. Tinubu to pacify Adamu governors with 2,000 appointments. Moving down there, the first bullet says party disowns leaked letter, denies one-man show allegations against candidate. And the very last bullet on the Punch this morning says agreed NWC members nominees added to campaign list. Onanuga explains exclusion. I take that again. Aggrieved NWC members nominees added to campaign list. Onanuga explains exclusion. That is all we'll be taking on the Punch. I'll leave the rest of the details for the panel discussion to handle. I'll go to Vanguard. And on Vanguard, the list sources 2023 for Rure in APC over campaign team list. Moving down to the first bullet says confusion over Adamu's letter to Tinubu. Next bullet says letter not from Adamu, says APC NWC. The next bullet says end Adamu out to hijack campaign council. Tinubu. Next bullet says Tinubu not ill in London. Source. Next bullet says may meet Wiki orders. And the very last bullet on Vanguard says to make more concessions to APC and WC. That is all we have for the Vanguard. Let's move briskly onto the Nation. And on the Nation this morning, the major story says scandal rocks PDP NWC as members return 122.4 million naira. Moving down there, the first bullet says Arapaja, Obi Adegunodo, Efa Ato reject strange rent stipends. Next one says outrage over curious payments. And the very last bullet for the Nation says party, cash meant for chieftains, housing allowance. That is all we have on the Nation. Let's move to the last paper for the first part of today's show. And that will be the Guardian. And on the Guardian, the major story says comply with peace accord. Buhari, Abubakar, Jonathan tell candidates. I will take only the first 2 bullets because the House is already filled with panel discussions. So we move to the first bullet that says Buhari, peace accord with Jonathan contributed to 2015 election success. The next one says, don't allow fake news, derail campaigns, leaders charge stakeholders. Thank you for joining us. That is all we'll be taking for the newspaper review. Don't go just yet because the show is just getting started. Winifred is already in the house with her guests to do justice to today's stories and even much more. I'll be back in the studio by 10 a.m. on Monday morning. My name is Tion Joseph. Do have a great day.
On Inside Nigerian Leadership Television. My name is Winifred Bebo, and as you can see, I have two eminent guests being flanked on the left and right with me in the studio this Friday, the last edition for the week. And my left, we have the public affairs analyst,
Yes, sir.
Majid Dahiru. Majid, it's always a pleasure to have you
I'm
on the
back
program.
from sabbatical.
Thank you so much. Welcome back. And on my right, you have Dr. Timothy Abuba. Dr. Abuba is the Chairman, Society of Family Physicians of Nigeria, FCT, Kevi chapter.
Thank you
You're
very
welcome
much.
to the program.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. My pleasure. We'll be having series of talk on Nigeria 62 and state of the nation. So I want to start with you first. Nigeria 62. How will you assess Nigeria's 62 years of independence?
Okay, I actually consider Nigeria at 62 to be a situation where a people are divided in oneness. I often hear people talk about unity in diversity or a lack of it. But I actually think the problem with Nigeria is that we are divided in our oneness.
We are divided in our oneness.
Yes, I say this because Nigeria's journey to nationhood in the last 62 years has been stunted. So much to the extent that whereas we got independence in 1960 and a country called Nigeria was birthed, but 62 years later, that country has not become a nation.
That is what, thank God you raised it up, because it's something I'm going to ask you later. Because many people are arguing that Nigeria is not a nation. So why are we not a nation?
Because we're not united at all. And why are we not united? Because the principles of equity, fairness, and justice has not been embedded in the operating system of Nigeria as an independent sovereign entity. And until that is done, you cannot achieve national unity and social cohesion enough to make you a competitive entity in the global race for resources. And so Nigeria, 62 years later, is experiencing economic crisis, heightened insecurity, and all other negative indices of development. And that is because you have to be a nation first before you can make any form of development or progress in any direction. So without being a nation, you cannot. And this is a fact across the world. The most successful countries you see today are those that are most socially cohesive and united as an entity. And why I said Nigeria's problem is division in oneness is because Nigeria is not even supposed to be described as a diverse country. Nigeria at best is a plural country because Nigeria is principally a monoracial country of Black African people. And the various ethnicities you see in Nigeria are simply a plurality of that same Black African family. And that is why before colonialism, before amalgamation, before the incursion of European slave traders or even colonial masters into Africa, the entire ethnic groupings in Nigeria and beyond had interacted for several centuries before then. And the evidence abounds in the similarities in our languages, our culture, our norms across the length and breadth of this country. In fact, what can be described as the Nigerian cultural commonwealth extend beyond the borders of Nigeria into Niger, into Cameroon, into Chad, and into the Republic. And so, why am I making this point? Until and unless the constituent peoples of Nigeria begin to see more of the similarities and commonalities within us and between us, we will not be able to evolve a common agenda as a people. We will still have a situation where there will be ethnic and religious separatism to the extent that we will not desire for each other what we desire for individual selves. And so, if you not desire for somebody else what you desire for yourself, you cannot stand for social justice, equity, and fairness. You cannot do that. And when you find yourself in power, you cannot also do unto others what you want others to do unto you by administering your own sphere of influence with the principles of equity and fairness. So essentially, Nigeria is still a country of tribesmen of over 500 ethnic nationalities and not citizens of a nation. So until we evolve from being tribesmen to citizens, no policy, no system of government can offer us, either democratic or otherwise, none. And that is why between 1960 and today, We've experimented with all forms of government, all. We started with parliamentary style democracy. We crashed it. We embraced military dictatorship. We crashed it. We came back to presidential system of government. We crashed it. We had regions. Any system you can think of in this world has been tried, tested, but failed in Nigeria because we are principally tribesmen of a country, not citizens of a nation.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. You just broke it down into pieces. So what do you think can, redeem Nigeria to make it a state, nation that's well desired?
We need the process of nation building at this point. And to start that, 62 years after, we need to retell our history. For so long, we have somehow convinced ourselves that Nigeria was an amalgamated entity of people that had nothing in common with each other.
Yes.
Which is not true. And let me say this, every country in the world you see today was a creation of colonialism, one way or the other. All countries. In fact, Ethiopia is one of the countries in Africa that wasn't colonized. Yes. Ethiopia itself was a colony that predated the era of African colonialism. It was once itself a colony. It was a conquered territory by earlier conquerors. So one way or the other, every nation was forged out of the process of colonialism. Britain, our colonial masters, were once colonized by the Romans, long before they came out to colonize us as well. What am I saying? Whereas nobody is going to validate the history of colonialism or its legacies, but it is simply a reality in nation building. So what other countries in the world have done is this. They have simply annulled the negative effect of colonialism and embraced the positive side, which is modern statehood. And if we understand that we're one people and begin to retell our history that links, for example, the people of Northern Nigeria to the people of Southeast, and the people of Southwest to the people of Southeast, around the entire part of this country, it is clear. We need to go back to those histories. We need to illustrate, for example, that the Igala people of Kogi, who have ancestral roots in the old Jukun Empire in present-day northeast of Nigeria, are also related to the people of Southeast through their kids and kin in the northern part of Enugu State. We also need to relate the history that, look, the people of Odisha today that are Igbo-speaking Southeasterners have their roots in Ife through Benin to the present-day location. So if you piece all of these entities together, discover that we are all interrelated. We need to establish that fact now. And when you now become conscious of your interrelatedness with fellow Nigerians from all other ethnicities and geographic locations, you begin to understand that when you marginalize a man from Adamawa because you are from Anambra, you are marginalizing your own kith and kin. Because that man in Adamawa is simply living in the same family compound, but simply in another part. Until this consciousness become nationalized, and will now begin the process of strengthening and reconfiguring Nigeria to become a true nation of citizens, where state of residency becomes de facto, not state of origin. So that you can even now begin to align your democracy with your economy. A situation where there's a disalignment because our politics is driven by identity. Yes, our politics is ethnic and religious. I expect good governance. How can that come? It cannot come. So we must begin a consciousness towards highlighting our similarities. They are so much, they are too much. When I look at my part of the country, for example, I realize that across the country we have a common name for the supreme deity. Yorubas call it Oricha. The people of North Central Nigeria call it, the Yorubas call it Orisha. Some people call it Oricha in North Central part of this country. The Igbos call it Olisa. What this tells you is that even before,
and they do call it Usa.
It tells you that there is a commonality, even the way we call our God, the way we refer to the person or the entity we feel is our creator. There's a commonality across the north, the east, and the west. And when we want to approach that same deity, we want to consult the deity. The Yorubas do it through a medium called Ifa. Many people in North Central do it through a medium called Eva. The Igbos do it through a medium called Afa. So why are we so insistent that we are two different, that we cannot be reconciled into a nation state in modern times, when similarities abound?
That's another question. Well, we are looking at the health sector. Dr. Timothy Ongwaya, the Chairman Society of Family Physicians of Nigeria, FCT, Kevi Charter.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your presence in our studio this morning. Now, I want to ask Nigeria 62, how has the health sector fared?
Well, the health sector has really improved, as it were, but we are going downwards now. It's on a downward trend.
Why do you say so?
At 62, if I'm looking at it from the health angle, Nigeria has not reached the geriatric point. We say people become geriatric elderly from
Yes.
65.
Okay, 65. So we have 3
65.
years
So
more
we
years
have
to
3
go.
more years now. And I'm sure we should try and get it right within those little time that is left. Health sector has come a long way. If you look very well, even before 1960, when we had independence, the health sector, what we had was maybe general hospitals, where the colonial masters had doctors who took care of them. Then by 1948, they built University College Hospital in Ibadan, which is like an offshoot of what they already have in London. But after that, it was later that we started thinking about the common man. How will they thrive? How will doctors help them? First primary healthcare centers was in about 1975. So that was when structures for healthcare system started. So they built the primary healthcare up to about 52 before Professor Olukoyere
Kuti came on board
yes,
as the Minister of Health.
Yes, once he came on board, he took up those 52, and for the first time, every local government had primary healthcare center, which is where the common man can be reached. Although unfortunately in Nigeria, we are not using our powers for the primary healthcare centers, because where you see outside, it's maybe the specialists that are even manning those primary healthcare centers. If you go to Cuba today, no matter how much American's healthcare system is, Cuba flaws American system due to their best primary healthcare centers. And the specialists are the ones that are manning those primary health centers. Because they see quite a lot of people.
But the reverse is the same in Nigeria, because many doctors, even NYC doctors, who don't want to go posting into all these primary healthcare centers, which are actually under the domain of local government.
Good.
Councils.
So the question now arises, why are they not going there?
Why are they not going there?
If the primary healthcare center that is so important is put into the hands of the weakest government, the tier of government, which is local government council, you find out that maybe what they are benefiting there, the doctors may not be so much. There are doctors in the federal sectors, if they are still handled from federal and posted to those places, still under federal, I'm sure they are going to go.
But Dr. Timothy,
Yes.
I beg to disagree, because a situation where we are talking about restructuring or devaluation, and every tier, like you have primary health centers under local government councils, you also have the same primary schools under them. So you cannot now say federal government should be handling primary health care centers, although it still does anyway, because some comprehensive primary health care centers were built by federal government. But why is it that every tier of government, they are not handling their responsibilities very well, especially when it comes to health?
No, what you need to understand is, when they say health is wealth, focus on the health so that the wealth comes. There is a structure that is supposed to, looking at Constance Kuti was driving towards something. You have the primary healthcare centers who feed the comprehensive healthcare centers what they cannot manage. Comprehensive goes to general before you have tertiary. But now what we have is that the tertiary institutions are flooded. They don't have bed spaces. This is where the specialists in different areas are. They're supposed to handle maybe fewer patients who are coming from this lower section. But now the place is flooded. You see people on bed, people on floor, people on chairs and things like that. That's not supposed to be. So it's supposed to be a situation where those places, like the primary healthcare center, the best is given to, because a wide range of people are seen at that primary healthcare center.
And that is where referrals are supposed to be made to general hospitals, from general, and you move over to tertiary. So, presently, as a presently constituted, health is in the concurrent list. So are you advocating that we move to the exclusive list?
Well, the truth of the matter is that when you see what's best for the country, see how you can work towards it. Because right now, when you don't see a future, you see people brain drain is occurring. So how do you now do to shut down the brain drain that is occurring? And we looked at the number of people doctors have registered over time, about 80,000 over time in Nigeria since the first production of doctors. Now everything has reduced, due to one thing or the other, about 50,000 on the Nigerian Medical Association register. And here we have 25 outside, 25 are here, catering for 20 million Nigerians. So you have the rates of doctors so low. What can we do to get these doctors staying back in the country is what will help us to improve the healthcare system. So if it is that you have to go to the exclusive list, let it be.
No, we are having issues with doctors. Why doctors are warming up? There is a Nigerian Medical Association. They are warming up for strike. What can we do to find a lasting solution to these problems in the health sector?
Well, I'm not representing Nigerian Medical Association, but the truth still remains that discussion, job to job, talk is better solution. People have a problem when they cannot meet the people that are supposed to discuss with them. When you discuss, you get to a common ground, then everybody knows that this is what's on ground, this is what we can do, and we are all fighting for the same thing. You see that things about strike will be mellowed down.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes. Now I'm going back again to you, Muchit. We just defined what a nation is and Nigerians' disparate groups and languages. So, as leaders that we've had over these 62 years, how would you rate the leaders that Nigeria has had, and has it done anything at all to bridge the gap, and enshrine unity among the populace?
Well, they have done their best, but their best has not been good enough. We saw a little bit more of national unity and cohesion under the military era, and that's because of the nature of the institution of the military. The military was trained as a pan-Nigerian entity and institution with little regard for ethnicity and religion. So between the time the military was in power, of course, they set up the National Youth Service Corps, for example, they set up the National Orientation Agency and so many other agencies that advanced the cause of national unity and integration. Well, they did their best. But even the military began to fall under the pressure of sectionalism eventually. So in the latter part of the military rule in Nigeria, we began to see the same malaise we saw with the civilian rulers of the First Republic and Second Republic rearing its ugly head within the military establishments. So tendencies such as tribalism, religious bigotry, and all sorts of divisive tendencies began to play out even within the military administration, which eventually led to the outcry for a transition to civil democratic rule in 1999. But beyond the individual players, what needs to be done is a collective effort at throwing up a political leadership now that is self-enlightened on the need to unite Nigerians by bringing down tribalism, religious bigotry, and all sorts of divisive tendencies. You see, it was Samora Machel who said, look, for a nation to rise, the tribe must die. Now, nobody's saying we should deny our ethnicities. What we're saying is, do not allow it to define you. Let your Nigerian citizenship begin to define you. The consequences of divided entity is what we are seeing today. There's no country in the world, none, has made any form of developmental stride, without achieving some level of social cohesion and national unity. None. I repeat, none. And so Nigeria cannot experience same until we do otherwise. Now, there's something wrong with the configuration of our structure, not the structure itself. I've said this severally. Right from independence, Nigeria's federating unit was structured along ethnic and religious lines, which made citizenship very difficult. Because, for example, if you're a Nigerian and you are born or you reside outside of your place of ancestral origin, you are considered an outsider politically and economically. And no effort was made to institutionalize the process of seamless integration and assimilation of Nigerians, wherever they choose to reside, with full political and economic rights extended to them without inhibition. That has not happened in Nigeria up until now. And we don't seem to care. All of us are benefiting from it. So we are affected in one way, but others are also affected in another way. So we just seem to be ambivalent about the matter. We do not think it matters until the structure is reconfigured away from geopolitical entities that were created on the experience of ethnicity and religion to become geoeconomic entities, so that even the politics of the country, the democracy we're practicing, can now be hinged on pragmatic economics away from sentiments of ethnicity and religion. As we speak, you cannot have a leadership out of Nigeria today that is devoid of ethnic and religious sentiment, because that is the driving force of our political process. Our politics is hinged on identity politics. You want to canvass a vote, you go and ask your kinsmen, you throw in some of this kind of tendencies.
Yes, that is what I'm also leading to the next question, because the campaigns has just been flanked for presidential election taking place next year, February. And we see that the three main contenders for presidency, talking about APC presidential candidate Bola Ahmed Tinubu, PDP, former VP Atiku Abubakar, and Labour Party Peter Obi. They are from three different.
They're from the old, First Republic original regions of North, East, and West.
So is religion not also going to play out?
It will play out.
Ethnic.
It will play out.
What are we expecting in this campaign?
Now, what we're expecting is we can balance the need for inclusion and competence as Nigerians in our decision. How do I mean? Now, the people of Southeast Nigeria have for long complained of exclusion from the scheme of things. Now, if a Southeasterner is agitating for inclusion, you cannot term this one as tribalism. It's not a call for justice. So it is better that the rest of us Nigerians should look at it critically and say, okay, is it possible to balance the need for inclusion, which is part of the issue of national unity, and then competence? Now, this is what I've suggested several at the beginning of the show. We can balance inclusion by saying, okay, principally, is there any part of the country that is having a sense of alienation that has not been included true and true? Okay, but is there somebody who is qualified and competent to do the job? We can balance this. However, the competence aspect is this. Such a person must be detribalized. Such a person must be ready. So in spite of the fact that maybe he's going to benefit from some level of sympathy towards a section of the country because of long-standing history of exclusion, but he's going to turn the tide to recreate Nigeria into a nation where it no longer matter where anybody comes from. Such a person must possess this competence as a yardstick for acceptability and electability. Because 62 years later, after independence in 1960, Nigeria is unable to function as a proper nation state because the government of Nigeria cannot provide security and welfare. We talked about healthcare. Healthcare is part of welfare and security. Healthcare is a national security matter. Healthcare is a welfare matter. Why is it impossible for the government to provide adequately for the health care of the Nigerian people? It is because the politics of identity arising from our divided nature has patronage as the major reward system. And what is patronage in simple terms? Corruption, stealing, appropriation of public office, abuse of office, impunity. That's what the meaning of patronage is.
Even ghost workers,
it's part of patronage.
Yes.
The patronage system,
they come about.
So much money goes into patronage and very little for the real work. This is simply what it is. And no accountability. Nobody goes anybody to account to. Some of us come on theory. We advocate for good governance. Yes. But in our closet arrangements, we also enable us of bad governance because we are tribalistic in our choices. Yes. When nobody sees us, we are religious, bigoted in our choices. When nobody is seeing us in when we're casting our ballots. Until we all come true and realize that the consequence of Nigeria's inability to evolve into a nation from the country it was in 1960 is what has led Nigeria down the road to state failure as we speak. And we can't afford another 4 years of this system. It will not work. Nigeria will not survive it. So I think the time is right for all of us to rise beyond ethnicity and religion as a people in making the next decision on who becomes the president. Why is the presidency important? Nigeria, yes, is a federation, but our federation is centralized in a way.
Yes, it is.
So a lot of powers are at the center. And you need that power to be used judiciously in the right direction to now correct that defect. I overheard our guest here talking about healthcare. I asked about the issue of healthcare being on the concurrent list. And what I am suggesting to him, the experience of moving it into the, you see, there's nothing wrong with our constitution in principle. There's nothing wrong with all our statutes. It is the operation. All that needs to be done is to strengthen the local government. The question is, why is the local government not functioning according to the dictates of the constitution? Somebody is making it not function. Somebody, the governors. The governors.
Yes.
So we will need a political process and a political party whose commitment will be fidelity to the constitution, absolute constitutionalism, where local government will have elected leadership, where they will function according to the dictates of the law without interference from the governors, and where their monies will not be deducted by 1 naira,
Yes.
and where the people will be empowered to check and hold to account elected councillors and chairmen of councils. Now, you now look at the budget for healthcare. The state government and the federal government, as it is done in the United States and every other jurisdiction in the world, cannot have a program for primary healthcare. So, okay, since the budget for no government cannot carry the vision for our primary healthcare as a party and as administration, we're going to make a special budgetary allocation to augment what the government will receive by way of intervention to expand and implement our vision for primary healthcare. So by that way, you have a collaboration between the local government, the state, and the federal government to actually fund and expand primary healthcare for Nigerians. Without even touching you don't need to touch the constitution. Federal governments are supposed to actually come in as a big brother where necessary to fund, intervene, help, equip all the other arms of government. That is the role of the federal government everywhere in the world. In America, for example, I've had this argument severally. When people talk about ASU and say that government, oh no, there's no way the world government funds education. I look at them and I'm wondering, where did these people go to school? Even those of you that went to Harvard and Yale. So you did not ask questions on how Yale and Harvard is funded. These are private universities that are funded by the federal government of the United States of America. 75% of the funding for their academic work comes from the federal government of the United States of America. Because the government knows that whether education is privately provided or publicly provided is a matter of national security. And so government funds even private schools in the US. In addition to owning federal-owned institutions, as well as states having state institutions, to provide cheap tuition and accessibility to education for the citizens. Both federal, state, and private schools are funded in the US by the government. This is the trend over the world, and that is why they are making progress across board. In the UK, for example, healthcare is almost it's like a fundamental human right. Governments all over the world know the importance of this, but to have this,
National health insurance is also working in the UK.
but for that to work, my dear sister, the UK Prime Minister, his salary is less than the salary of a journalist in the UK. Boris Johnson was considering to actually resign because salary, when he was a columnist, it was higher than his prime minister's salary. In the US, the salary of the president is $400,000 per annum. There's no budget for food in the White House for the first family and their guests. No allocation for housing, for wardrobe, nothing. If you have visitors, you pay from that your salary for them to eat. But sometimes with the organized parties in the White House, you come with your own drinks. So there's no money to provide food. Why am I saying this? The government itself starves itself to provide that excess for the people. What is the case in Nigeria? The reverse is the case. Voted for nonsense, for rubbish, and you cannot provide for healthcare for your people. So the Nigerian government is like a responsible father who lives in a mansion, drives a Mercedes Benz, but his children are walking to school barefooted, in tattered clothes, and hungry. That is what the Nigerian government is, an irresponsible father. But again, how did we get here? It is the division of our own people. When people are divided, they can't come together to collectively ask government to do the right thing. No, they cannot. That is why political leaders continuously conspire to keep it divided so they can rule easily. But we are saying 62 years later, insecurity has engulfed us. It's a byproduct of our disaster as a nation. That we're not a nation, is this why we have insecurity on this proportion. Corruption is a function of disunity. People don't notice. That is why in Nigeria, because all of us, all ethnic groupings, are struggling for Nigeria's internally generated resources. All of us, through politics. And so even at the state level, this ethnic group versus this ethnic group and all of that, assembly seats are now shared and allocated by ethnic groups. So when you win your position, you are expected to go and serve the interest of the ethnic group whose turn it is to have a piece of the national cake. So that is why the entire gamut of our democratically elected government is self-serving and not serving public interest. So a senator comes to Abuja, for example, you expect to go and do oversight and hold to account the executive arm of government. He's not able to do that because he has a pressing need in his village for employment and for money to do handouts. So he goes there and compromises, pads the budget, agrees with the corrupt colleague on the other side to do a very corrupt-strewn budget that will simply lead into building of the system. That is why your budget, if you take a look at the Nigerian budget, you will weep. Because that is the interest you see accommodated there. So today Nigeria is borrowing to pay debt because we become so indebted that our revenue can no longer carry the responsibility of servicing the debt. We can no longer pay for basic services. And by next year, you're telling us that there might not be capital projects in the budget, but there's no money to do it. That is the reason. But if we are united as a people, we would have been competing with other countries, other nations, for a common market. We would have united in-house to go outside there and compete globally. If you look at one of the most integrated sectors of the Nigerian economy and national life, which is entertainment, that's the most integrated. You see, in the entertainment industry, the oneness of Nigeria is very, very evident. So you see an Igbo man who's acting Yoruba movies seamlessly and effortlessly. And in fact, some of the best Yoruba actors are people that are originally supposed to be Igbo. Some of the best singers in TV language are not even TV people. Some of the best Hausa singers are not even originally Hausas, because people simply follow their talent in the entertainment industry, and they have taken the world by storm. You can see the level of millions of dollars coming in to our young men and women in the entertainment industry because of that unity and collaboration among all ethnic groups in Nigeria that has created a uniquely powerful Nigerian musical sound that is shattering the world. Look at our global giants like Wizkid, P-Square, Davido, Burna Boy. Burna Boy is not Fela's son. Burna Boy, I'm not even sure if he's from Ogun State like Fela, or even if he's a Yoruba boy. But he has used, because of his Nigerianness, he sampled Fela tunes to become African giants. That is what unity and collaboration does for us. If Burna Boy had insisted on not going close to the Yoruba man song, and as instead of singing in his local dialect from somewhere, he will be in the village square today, still dancing for marriages and naming ceremonies. That is what unity does for the people. So we have a lot of things to learn from the unity in the entertainment industry that has created an export competitive sector in the economy that is now rivaling oil. Because our children go out there, they perform in sold out shows in the biggest arenas in the world. I never thought a Nigerian would go to O2 Arena in UK and sell out. I didn't think it was Michael Jackson and co that goes there. We are doing that in that aspect. We need to replicate this in national life in all sectors.
Madison Square Garden.
They are everywhere. They're everywhere. That is what unity can do. That is what integration and cohesion can do in a country.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. Doctor, I want to ask you this question before we go. Now, Nigeria is 62 years of age. And what has bedeviled the health sector, brought the health sector, has been rivalry among health practitioners. Talking about doctors, nurses, lab technicians, whatnot, pharmacists. They are always at loggerheads, especially against doctors on one hand. And so, what solution will you prefer for this?
Well,
at a time during Professor Oyebuchi Chukwu's tenure as minister, he even set up a panel, a committee to look into it, and nothing was achieved at the end of the day.
Okay. The truth of the matter is that we in Nigeria, or we as human beings in Africa, we are not the people that created medicine and surgery. We had our traditional herbalist kind of this thing before, yes. So where it came from, we need to know what is happening there, so that we can apply it here. It's just like saying you want to write an essay and You didn't discover ABC. ABC was discovered by people. You learnt it, you made words and all this stuff. So when you want to write essay, go to where people have discovered ABC. They've been writing essays and books. Then you learn what they are doing.
At the
and
time,
apply it.
nurses insisted that elsewhere, especially in US, that most nurses they earn more than doctors.
Well, if they earn more than doctors, how are they earning more than doctors? What principle? Because if you go to America now, a nurse has the ability to work in 3 different hospitals. Okay, if you work in 3 different hospitals sleeplessly, you definitely earn more than doctors. Is that what is happening there? But here, maybe you want to say the nurse can sit the same distance and earn more than a doctor
Yes,
in
place.
one shift,
Yes,
in one
that
place.
was-
So imagine that person
that's what
doing
they
3
said.
different hospitals.
Because I covered the health sector for a long time, and I was witness to the rivalry that
Good.
existed.
Good. So it's just
And
to
it still
study
exists.
what is happening in other places. Sit down and analyze it. Get a whole team to come together and say, this is what's happening here, this is what's happening here. We want to maybe put this and this together to get our own Nigerian visit, and we'll work with it. And over time, that is what has been helping us. Maybe in terms of salary, you say doctors 5%, a ratio of 5, 4, 3 with pharmacists, nurses. If that happens, then at a point, the nurses will say, okay, they want to increase their own. Doctors will say,
It's
no,
always like that.
no problem, increase, but remember the ratio, things like that. And it starts
Terms of- and when doctors don't choose, and of course, maybe federal government listens to them, the next thing is for the other health workers to start warming up for their own strike.
Yes, because
So, Nigeria, before we go, what are you proffering? What is your solution to this? How can we stop this incessant strike and rivalry among health practitioners?
But-
What is very, very critical?
personally, what I think is this: let's have the heads of these particular bodies, unions, come together and go searching for what singular principle that they can use. Once they get, let them discuss it at the head. And before it comes down,
Maji talked
straight.
about personal aggrandizement when leaders come to position. Because at the time I was supposed to ask the president, one of the presidents of NMA, and he did say that we had a head of state whose wife was a nurse, so she also used that position to increase nurses' wages. So that's part of where the problem lies today. So how can we solve this personal
That's what I'm trying to say.
leadership?
Go to places where these things are done. UK, send the committee. I don't know what the committee that's set up by Wibuchi did, but send the committee, get the working guidelines for different places out there. Come together, sit down, analyze it, get everybody to buy into it. Then we'll now start getting it downstream to different hospitals.
Lastly, again, too, I want to ask another question. Now, will you say that you are satisfied with the level of equipment and staffing of Nigerian tertiary hospitals?
Definitely
Nigerian
not.
institute.
Definitely not. You see, I trained in the University of Ibadan.
Okay.
Now, University of Ibadan, the structure of University of Ibadan is the same plan with University of Birmingham in London or thereabouts. So, but when you enter the rooms, what is there is different from what is out there. Technology has improved. Things are going,
And we are not seeing
different,
that
and we are not
here.
seeing that here. Now, in 2001, African leaders came together in Nigeria, in Abuja, not that they went somewhere else. They agreed that whatever the budget is in the country,
15%.
15%, are we doing that?
But UNESCO also said the same thing, that 25% of national budget. But you can see that federal government has so many demanding, how do I call it, issues. So if it grants education 25, grants health 15. So what is remaining for
What is
federal
more
government?
important than education and health?
And health. The two of them are very important. You see, if it was an agreement by the African countries, we sat down, agreed, let's try and see how it can come to pass so that the country, health is wealth, and as we said, it's a fundamental human right, but we are not taking it like that. Let's see how we can build the country to come up to the standard that it is. People have taken
So
this.
what is your say on medical tourism
Make it-
led by our politicians and leaders?
Well, of course, you know that it's not the best. Let's try to build what we have in our country to be able to meet up what they are looking for. The people that are going to meet there are us, doctors that are out there. You go back there, you see Nigerians 2 or 3. In fact, there was a time a consultant, a senior they were all Nigerians on duty in one London
As a
hospital.
matter of fact, I have a family friend whose doctor overseas is a Nigerian.
Mm.
So begin to wonder.
So if the manpower is here, make the facilities available, make the government, let government, the structure of government invest in healthcare. Let them start coming here. There are things that can be done. It's just to make it available. The doctors, the manpower, they are all here. Sometimes you go to England, they tell you, why don't you go to Ibadan? Professor so is there. He comes to lecture us here, and you don't have to go back there. So why think of going out there when you can actually make it here and let things work right?
Now that the election campaigns have started, what are you looking out for leaders, especially in terms of health sector?
Well, I pray that we have leaders who are going to overhaul the system in health sector and make it something that they themselves can enjoy while here. If they're able to do that, then you find out that Nigerian health sector will go very far.
But don't you think that you people have been a bit laid back, considering the fact that most leaders that we've had, before a election, they will say that they are not going out for medical tourism. But at the end of the day, they still find themselves. And doctors have just be silent in the face of it.
Well, we'll try our best to say what we can. We can't stop the president going out. We'll just talk and say these things.
We have the political leaders too.
Yes, the leaders. Once they go out, we will just talk. We will say these things are available here. These things are better here. But if we don't listen, there's no way.
During Oyebuchi Chukwu's time too,
Yes.
there was also clamor for the position of
CMD.
No, Surgeon General, to verify aspirant or president when they come. I think that was top on the bone at that time. What happened? Did the decision did?
I think so. Not to cover
some again. Okay, thank you so much. Time is running out from our hands. Lastly, before we go, now Nigeria is about to witness another change on baton in terms of leadership. What are your hopes?
Well, Nigerians must take a more than a personal interest in politics now. And let me start with my colleague here. As medical doctors, I think you need to put a check of demand before the aspirants. And then of them who decides to adopt it, and you agree on the modality of the adoption. Please, whether the person is from the north, east, or west, where the person comes from, once the person agrees in principle to say, look, that which is your demand, I'm going to meet up with it. All of you, whether you are from east, west, wherever you are from, please vote for that person. You see, as professional groups, those of us in the media, all professional groups will come together now and take a stand. Put your demand on the table. Whenever they're coming to address your Congress or any other person's gathering, they shouldn't just come there and talk and go. No. They have to agree with us. This is what we want. This is what we think will make the government and the country better. We prefer to this sector. Let us get their commitment directly into it. Let them pronounce on it. Let them make public the adoption of such propositions. That should be the basis of our social contract to them. I will now vote for that. It doesn't look at the person's face. No matter how ugly the person's face is, it doesn't matter. Do you agree to implement 15% of our budget for healthcare? Yes or no? Let us vote for that. And we can hold it accountable. And let us not accept monies from them. You see, people say collect their money. No, you can't do that. Leave their money for them. No, at this point, no. But this is what you ask me to do, because if he pays you money, when he wins, you tell because of the money he spent paying you, he only implement 50% of this. So it's a collective decision now. It's a collective responsibility. We don't have a choice. The books are scary.
It is.
The other day, Akim Addition said Nigeria has a debt problem. And the finance minister said, no, what we have is a revenue problem. And then I asked, if you have a revenue problem, it means you have a debt problem. Don't you think so? Meaning, even those that are in charge of our finances don't understand that revenue problem equals to debt problem. For a country that is indebted, if you have a revenue problem as an indebted country, it means you have a debt problem because you cannot service your debt or pay it off.
2 days ago, there was a report that NNPC paid 94.7% of its revenue in August to subsidy.
And that they've not remitted in the last 8 months into the account. If it continues like this, God forbid, something disastrous will happen. And that will escalate insecurity because people will now take up crime as a matter of necessity to survive. Where does that leave us? We have an opportunity, which we've had every 4 years since 1999. Let us maximize it now. This is not the time to vote along tribal and ethnic lines. No, we can't afford it any longer. Please, let us be proactive so that we make sure that we crown, or rather we hire our next servant, political servants, to go in there and lead in line with what we have mandated them to do. Another thing, otherwise, we may not be sustainable, we may not survive it as a nation. We can't. So this is my appeal to Nigerians, really. We must get our next leadership right and begin the process of nation building alongside socioeconomic development, which includes healthcare.
Thank you so much, well, viewers. This is what we call it a day. We'll round up today's breakfast show on Inside Nigeria from Leadership Television. With me in the studio has been Dr. Timothy Abuba, Chairman, Society of Family Physicians of Nigeria, FCT and KEFI chapter. Thank you once again for your presence.
You're
today.
welcome.
And of course, I had my usual Friday turning public affairs analyst, Majid Dahiru. It's always a pleasure to have you in the program.
Thank you very
So
much.
viewers as well, round up today's edition. Don't forget, next week, Monday, same time, same station, is another day. Meanwhile, this is wishing you a happy independence celebration. Tomorrow is Nigeria's 62 years of age. Bye.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.